I know many of my subscribers made this suggestion months ago, and I'm gonna be honest, I thought you guys were crazy. I wrote it off as a conspiracy theory and not worth my time. And today I'm going to share with you a series of events that has led me to the discovery that you are more likely to be right than you are to be wrong. I, like everyone else, thought it was weird that Jurassic Survival could get away with creating a game that looks so identical to Last Day on Earth. It was basically a new skin on the same game. In fact, in the beginning, they kept a lot of the same artwork. When players asked the devs about it, they responded, "We prefer to focus on the development of our game, dealing with such issues as lawyers' jobs, and we leave it to them, in order not to be distracted from work by legal concerns." I was satisfied with this answer, so I moved on. 2 months later, Jurassic Survival was coming out with a ton of updates, and some players were even saying that it was going to do better than Last Day on Earth. This of course bothered me, and there was no news of any type of lawsuit. At this point I had contact with Kefir, so I asked Veronica how Kefir felt about Jurassic Survival and whether or not I should make videos about the game. She said they have no problem with Jurassic Survival and no problem with me promoting it on my channel. This really confused me. Kefir comes up with this amazing concept that makes a crazy amount of money, and then the company that makes the most similar ripoff to their game starts to gain more traction than them, and they have no problem with it? And even encourage me that I should have no problem promoting it? This was the first time I seriously considered the idea that Kefir and Mishka Production could be in some way connected. So I started to do some research, and as you guys know, I like to do my research. The first thing I did was visit Mishka Production's website. Here I found no information about the company, they have no address, they have no information about their team, and they are not hiring employees. Their website is simply designed for player support. So I looked them up on Brain App, and there was again no information about the company, which that is pretty unusual. The only thing I found there is that Jurassic Survival is their only game, and that the first trace of the company's existence started on the same day that they released the game. So I went to public records on their website domain, and I found that Mishka Production's website was set up by someone who lives or lived in Volgograd, Russia, which is the same city that holds one of Kefir's 2 main offices. Kefir's other main office is in St. Petersburg, which I also found some connections there, but I'll talk about that later. So this of course does not prove anything, but it got me to start asking the right questions. The first question I asked myself is, what are the copyright laws like in Russia? After a little bit of research, I found that the current copyright laws of the Russian Federation, which were implemented in August of 1999, grants copyrights on any creative works that have existed in some objective form. This objective form does not even need to be tangible. Any form that can be perceived by others is enough. When I first started playing Jurassic Survival, my 3-year-old daughter exclaimed, "I didn't know Last Day on Earth had dinosaurs." It is very easy to perceive that they copied the game. So a lawsuit could easily succeed solely on the fact that there are hundreds of videos on YouTube calling Jurassic Survival a straight-up ripoff of the game. In addition to that, a lawyer could easily point out that over half of Jurassic Survival's game files are just a straight-up copy of Last Day on Earth, which was not true of any of the other copycat games. The second question I asked myself is, where would Mishka Production get the money to make a game like this? Even though they copied a ton of the files, games this big are really expensive to produce. Kefir was an already established game company. I asked a developer friend of mine who also plays Last Day on Earth to give me a quote on how much it would cost for Mishka Production to make Jurassic Survival. He crunched the numbers for me and said that the cost of standing up new servers, all the infrastructure set up for the new development and deployment pipeline, back-end code, the tweaks of gameplay enabling new concepts, music, game conceptualization, artwork, and language translation would be anywhere from $250,000 to over $500,000. And that doesn't even include the cost of being a company, the cost of hiring employees, and so on, which would have been a cost for Mishka Production because they did not exist before the game was released. So I asked myself, who's going to spend $500,000 to produce a game that could easily be shut down through copyright laws? And the answer is no one. If a company is going to spend that much money, they're going to make sure that they don't lose their investment. They can do that by either making the game different enough that they will not get sued, or by being in a league with those that have the power to sue them. Jurassic Survival was the only copycat game that did not do the former, so at this point I concluded that they must have done the latter. I still had some doubts from time to time, but I was pretty confident at this point that they were somehow in league with each other. Then on February 16th, the game Grim Soul Dark Fantasy came out. I naively thought it was an American company when I saw the English name Bricksworks Games, but realized very quickly that it too was a Russian-based game when my receipt was partially in Russian. Not to mention that Russian was the only other language they offered. Bricksworks Games does not have a website yet, but later I found out that they also have employees that work from Volgograd and St. Petersburg, Russia. They, like Mishka, came into existence the day they released their game, and they also have no contact information even on AppBrain, which again is rare. None of the other copycat games did anything like this. And though Grim Soul did make a lot more visual changes, which of course would have costed even more to produce, they too have game files that are pretty much a straight up copy of Last Day on Earth, and their game functionality is almost identical, which means they also could easily be sued. So I concluded that they too are somehow connected to Last Day on Earth. I of course wanted to make a video on it right away, but I value my relationship with Kefir, and it is obvious that they have hid this, so I told Kefir that I learned their secret, and I was hoping to talk to them about it. They were intrigued by this, and Veronica asked me on Discord what secret I had found. I told her I knew about the connection between Kefir, Mishka Production, and Bricksworks Games, and that I'd like to post a video on it, but I know that Kefir has kept it secret. I explained that I don't want to post a video on it if the information will hurt Kefir because I want Kefir to succeed, but that I think it will actually help Kefir because a lot of Last Day on Earth players won't even try out the other two games because they are loyal to Last Day on Earth. The chat went silent for about 30 minutes, while I presumed she was talking to her coworkers. She then responded that Kefir likes to keep some topics just between their team, but that she has already shared Kefir's views on clones with me, and that anything more than that is a conspiracy theory which they are not interested in. I realized at this point that I was putting her in an uncomfortable position. She didn't want to straight up lie to me, which I appreciate, but she also couldn't let me in on it either. So I told her that I understood why she couldn't trust me with this information, and after a while asked her if it was okay if I posted a video on it. She responded that she wasn't sure because she didn't know what I was going to say. I then assured her that I didn't know exactly how the company dynamics work and that I only know that the 3 games are a collaborative project. She seemed relieved by my answer and thanked me for it, and then after asking her several more times if I could post the video, she replied that Kefir strives to never influence the content YouTubers create. I really respect that answer, and I hope this video honors her. I realize I put her in a tough position, and she dealt with all my questions with skill and grace. So to recap this video, Jurassic Survival would cost anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000, and creating Grim Soul Survival would cost anywhere from $400,000 to $700,000. If a company is going to spend that much money, they're going to make sure they don't lose their investment. They can do this by either making the game different enough that they will not get sued, or by being in a league with those that have the power to sue them. Jurassic and Grim Soul Survivals were the only copycat games that did not do the former, so I believe it is most reasonable to assume that they must have done the latter. This assumption is supported by the fact that Kefir has not condemned those 2 games, nor do they deny their relationship with them when asked about it point blank, and that their employees all work from the same 2 main cities, which I will be explaining more in my next video. I think it's safe to say that this evidence is enough that it is more reasonable to assume that the 3 companies work together than it is to assume that they don't. But there are a lot of ways that companies can work together. Companies can buy rights from each other, they can create franchises, several companies can form under one umbrella company. There are a lot of options. The point of this video is just to argue that they work together. My next video, which I am posting at the same time as this one, reveals the rest of the evidence that I have found in my research and argues why I think that Mishka and Brickworks are just names and everything is essentially just Kefir. I'm not going to be able to prove it, just like in this one, but the evidence is pretty convincing. I also argue why I think this is a brilliant move by Kefir and how we as players should interact with this new information. Alright guys, I'll see you next time.